and here we go.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Listening To Show, your life and times with me, Chris Grimes, the storytelling show that features The Clearing, where all good questions come to get asked and all good stories come to be told, and where all my guests have two things in common. They're all creative individuals and all with an interesting story to tell. There are some lovely storytelling metaphors, a clearing, a tree, a juicy storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, some alchemy, some gold, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, and a cake. So it's all to play for. So yes, welcome to the Good Listening To Show, your life and times with me, Chris Grimes. Are you sitting comfortably? Then we shall begin.
Yes, indeed. Welcome, thrice welcome to this very, very illustrious day in the Good Listening To Your Life and Times with me, Chris Grimes Clearing. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome to somebody who's been called the godfather of modern poetry, or more importantly, the patron saint of poetry by Carol Ann Duffy. This is Roger McGough, whose wonderful dulcet musical vocal tones have been ringing around my head for most of my life, actually. And just to blow a bit of...
Apologies for that.
No, it's a good thing, Roger McGough, I promise you. And you also penned Lily the Pink, I believe, as the Scaffold.
Indeed, yes, I have penned it, yes.
And that is the first thing, just so I can blow a really happy bit of smoke at you, that's the first thing I ever performed to on stage in Uganda when my parents ran something called the Nile Players Theatre, and I accidentally got a laugh, which got me launched on a sort of comedy career, because we were jogging up and down to Pink, the Pink, the Pink, and I got out of time. And that was the first time I experienced live on stage a laugh, and I think that probably infected me in some way. And so I have you to thank for that.
Okay, that's good.
So Roger McGough, you're extremely welcome to the Good Listening To Clearing. You're a real thrill for me to be able to interview today, so you are extremely welcome. So first question for you, how's morale? What's your story of the day?
My story of the day? I don't have one. I got it this morning. That was pretty good. And went for a jog, and then peeled some mushrooms, or cut some mushrooms up, and had lunch with my wife. And I'm here. That's it.
That's a great
so
day.
Exciting, honestly.
And I'm very impressed you went for a jog.
It won't always be as exciting as this. I must warn you. That maybe it's exciting, as it gets. Go on.
But I love the fact you've made mushroom soup. You've been for a jog. So how often do you go jogging in a given week?
When I'm in and around, I like to go most days a week, not the weekends, most days during the week. But literally, I'm not talking very much. I mean, I can see where I jog. It's just around the green where I live.
Yes.
So it just gets me fresh air and out a bit, and that's all. I just think it's a good thing. I've always done it years. I was never a good runner. My daughter, Izzy, who's now 30, I think, she ran her first London marathon last Sunday. So we all went down, family, to see her running along, did the 26 miles, amazing. So no, she's the runner in the family, not me. But
no, many congratulations to Izzy. That's fantastic. Also, I'm supremely aware that you are born the same year as my father, as it happens. So when I heard that you were also called the godfather of modern poetry, that's why I was so happy to make the association that's why your voice has been ringing in my ears all of my life. And I was really struck as well with, one of your most iconic poems, which you wrote very early on, Let Me Die a Young Man's Death. How I notice you are very, very happily straddling the years that you state, which is 73, 91 and 104. And so I really sincerely hope you make it all the way to 104.
Hey guys, thank you. I'll do my best. Yes, I remember writing that poem years and years ago in Liverpool, and my father not long died, and he was only 53, worked on the docks in Liverpool. And I've been brought up, because I was brought up in a sort of a Catholic family in Liverpool, lots of uncles and aunties, and a lot of births, marriages and deaths. large family, as you can imagine. And it's very common in those days to, if there was a death in the family, the coffin would be brought into the parlour, and it would all go there. I remember as a young, little toddler almost being lifted up, see granddad lying there, or auntie so and so, and all that. And then there was the, few little prayers, and then later on the wake, and it was very acceptance. It was, so death was close to you, but not in a sort of scary way. It was just part of, if you like, the rituals of what happened. And but it must have been slightly scary, I suppose. I was aware of it young. But then writing, being in Liverpool, the Picton Library, I remember one day and writing, a young man's death, thinking about my father and thinking about, when people die at 53 and you're 21,
yes,
seems like a long way away. It seems like an old, long way ahead. Then of course, as you move up the ladder, you realise it's not that far ahead.
And I mentioned my father is the same birth year as you. He's born in July 1937. I think you're November 1937, if I'm correct. And my dad famously has said, inside every old person is a young person wondering what happened. And so that is very relatable.
Is your dad well?
Yes, he is. That's very kind of you to ask. Yes, he is. And he's doing as well as can be expected for the age of 83. And it's just wonderful to still be here. And as I say, your poem happily spans until you're 104. So I sincerely hope you make it to the very end. And what's it like to have a poem that most people, well, it's very well regarded as being a poem that people often like to have read out at their funeral?
Yes, it's strange that. Because I wouldn't have it read out at mine. I've written one since called "Not For Me, A Young Man's Death," a sequel to that, saying I don't want any of that. No, I want, and I don't want any of that. I've written a lot of poems about that actually, and about I don't want any of that. So it was a funeral service where they say we're not here to celebrate his life, but we're not here to mourn his passing, but to celebrate his life. I say, oh yes, you are. Yes, mourn. Get mourning, miss.
Get mourning.
Crying, shouting, screaming. I want that one. Women jumping on the coffin and all that. So it's all that sort of thing. So I don't know. I just get on with this and try to write about it, and that helps keep it to stop me thinking about it. Writing stops me thinking about things.
And to your point, by the way, about women jumping on your coffin, that's what I so particularly enjoyed about when I'm 104 and banned from the cavern, may my mistress, catching me in bed with her daughter and fearing for her son, cut me up into little pieces and throw away every piece but one.
My ear.
Yes, obviously. Also, every time, and by the way, sincerely, I have you to thank for this. Every time in my life I see somebody wave at a train, I think about you because of your wonderful poem, Waving at Trains. Oh, yeah. I always have that thought about, are they waving at the train or at the driver or at the train itself? And that's, thanks to you.
Probably. Well, I think it's me. I was thinking they're waving at me now.
And they are, let me tell you.
Of course they are, yeah.
Can I say what a great thrill it is for me to be sitting here in the advent of my podcast, waving at you. We also have Katie Elliott Armitage and a place called Les Sœurs Anglais, the English Sisters, in common as well. I know you've done a poetry workshop where I also go and do my Instant Wit Laughter Labs once a year.
Oh, yes. That's right, the best ones.
And isn't that a beauty? And you've just been to Crete as well, I'm gathering, for a fortnight as well?
Yes, just come back from a workshop. I do workshops over there for most years, every year really. I have been for the last 5 or 6 years. And it's lovely, just lovely. And it's run by a very old friend of mine called Phil Howson, who was in a band called the Corgis. Some of you may remember. But I knew him before that in Liverpool and do work with him when I was with the Scaffold, and he was a talented musician. And
the Scaffold was Lily the Pink, wasn't it? That was the...
Yes, it was. Indeed, possibly. He wasn't involved in that, but he was too young. But then he went to academia, then the Corgis and academia again, and now he lives out in Crete and organises workshops and film nights for the expats and things. And last time I was there, not this time, last year, Neil Innes was also there with me. Oh. The Bonzo dog, yes, wonderful. Yes. Neil.
And his sad passing a couple of years ago as well.
Yes, wonderful. Great man. Okay.
And if I last bumped or saw Neil Innes, not that I knew him, but because of being in Bristol, there's something called the Slapstick Festival. And one of my guests within the clearing of The Good Listening To has also been Chris Daniels, who runs the Slapstick Festival. And I know they featured the Dog Doodah band there, as Bonzo Dog Doodah band there as well.
Of course, we worked with the Bonzos when go back to the Scaffold. We had on number one, and at the time in the charts also. What's the famous Bonzo Spaceman?
Yes.
Urban Spaceman. I'm the Urban Spaceman. That was racing up the charts, and Little Pink was racing up the charts, and we all wondered which one would get there first. But we joined up then because Scaffold was sort of running out of steam in a way. We were doing different things, and we did a few shows with the Bonzos, and then we morphed into a group called Grimm's. We toured for about 2 years, made an album or two, so good. And that was an acronym for Gorman, Roberts, Innes, McGough, McGear, Stanchel. So it was John Gorman, Scaffold, and Andy Roberts, who was a great musician, and then Neil Innes, McGough, McGear, substantial. And that was great fun because they provide all the music, and we did the silliness and poetry, music, so on.
And by the way, also, I really enjoyed researching you just this morning, just to touch base about, oh, great, I'm bringing you into my clearing. And the fact that you had an old pair of Paul McCartney's trousers discovered in your attic, which was a blue mohair pair of pants, apparently.
Indeed. Yes. Indeed. And I they were given to me, excuse me, years and years ago, early Scaffold days, before we'd gone professional, I think, just doing shows. And Mike got a snappy dress. I was a teacher then. I was a geography teacher, dressed like a geography teacher. And Mike used to be given Paul's cast-offs. Paul was then taken off there. They were going around in their suits coming out of his ears, down to Carnaby Street. Another show, another suit. Great, snappy dresser, Paul McCartney, of course. They gave Mike some of his old stuff, and Mike then passed them on to me. Sharpened me up. So when he gave me a suit and a pair of trousers and a shirt, and I tried them on, but I put them away. Didn't wear them very much. And then gave the trousers to another friend of mine, Mike Hart. And then years and years and years later, I went up to the attic, going through my stuff, and found the shirt and pair of trousers. Oh, Paul's trousers! Wow! But all the moths had got at them.
Aha!
They got straight for the crotch, all around the crotch, all his arms. So, So those are any vague ideas about selling trash? If I would, no. So Roger Poem, wrote this poem, which is published, called Macca's Trousers, and it's about finding the trousers, discussing it, and then say what would I do with them, and then eventually I had them framed, and now they hang in the Tate Gallery next to Peter Blake and David Hockney, and people walk past admiring them. That was the poem. And I thought, hey. Why don't I make a work of art? Inverted commas. And so I made 2 works of art, 2 inverted commas. And I, with the help of some of the art gallery in Liverpool Art Museum, they now have been hanging there. So the trousers on canvas with a poem written down the side, and they're on display. And they're lovely. But at some point I'll be looking for a buyer, because there's any amazing.
And in fact, you may even be able to sell them back to Paul McCartney himself, because I'd have
to ask Paul first.
And the poem you wrote, is it called To Macca's Pants or To Macca's Trousers?
Trousers.
Of course it is. Lovely. So, Roger, again, thanks so much for joining me. I'm going to curate you through the journey of the Good Listening To podcast, where
it's all going so well. I thought it was all going so well, Chris.
It is, which is why I'm now delighted to.
I know you're ducking out now. You're ducking out.
I'm not ducking out. I'm going to take you through the curation of the clearing, and I'm intrigued to know, in all your world travels and all of your wonderful words that you've penned. One question I am gagging to ask you later on is, of all the things you have written, which is your favourite poem? Which may be an impossible question.
Okay.
Bank that. But anyway, it's all to play for. I'm going to take you into a place called the clearing, and then I arrive with a tree in your clearing. Then I shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out, and you're already giving me lots of those anyway, which is lovely. Then we talk about alchemy and gold. There's a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, even some late entry Roger McGough too, if you like, and a cake where we talk about legacy as well. Okay. So, Roger McGough, welcome to the clearing of the Good Listening To, Your Life and Times with me, Chris Grimes. What is a clearing like for you? Where do you go, physically or metaphorically, to get clutter-free and able to think?
Well, the first reaction, of course, I come here where I work and I study. And I've always had a place where I go to work. It hasn't always been a study, as you can imagine. When I started writing as a teacher, it could be anywhere. It could be, or when I first had kids, it could be the bedroom, or anywhere you're just on your own, really, with a bit of quiet and a pen and paper. So that'd be one obvious one, really. Other ones less obvious will be a pub table. I like often after a jog in the morning, get pissed at night. Not quite, not quite like that. But I do like going to the local pub. Always like the pub. So there's not to get drunk, but to go there and just to talk to mates, and to learn and to listen and to talk and try things out on them. And I will often try out a poem on my friends, and they're very good about it. They go. I said, I've just written a poem. Anybody can read it? Anyone interested? They go, oh God. Oh, yeah, no, Grog, please. We'd love to hear a poem. Sorry, the poem. And that's where we're trying it out. And just the jokes, the fun, the bonhomie, and it's good.
Yes.
Keep me in touch with the community and all that. And the third one, most surprised, might be during certain parts of the year, certain times of the year, rather, it's the bowling green. And there's a bowling green up the road in Barnes, back of the sun in. And that's a nice place to go and play bowling.
By the way, you share that in common with my father as well. My father will be delighted. My dad runs the Syston Bowls Club near Leicestershire.
Your dad and I could get on, don't we? Thanks, your dad and I.
Your dad, my dad and you would really get on, and this is lovely. Also, you mentioned the pub, and there's a pub table where you might sit with a pen and paper. In your local pub, do you have a sort of particular table they always make sure you can sit at?
Well, no, not quite that, not like that. And I don't necessarily write there. I join a mate. It's a mate of mine. There's a bookbinder actually, and a few other friends. They change over the years, as you can imagine, Chris. Over the years, living in different places, living in Liverpool.
Yes. I'm
a local pub there, and being in Notting Hill Gate. I'm a local pub. Now I'm in Barnes. I'm a local pub, the Red Line, and going there, and there'll be friends there, and someone will have a table, and I will join them. Other friends may or may not join us, and but so someone there I know, and it's just for now.
By the way, why I asked that was because I live in Bristol. I've been to the Slad Valley before, and I remember going to the pub where Laurie Lee used to go, the Wolf Pack, and I know that there was always his favourite chair and his table.
That's right. Yeah,
so I wondered if you had an equivalent.
Good, great man, lovely man, Laurie. Knew him quite well.
So if I may, I'm going to arrive with a tree now in the clearing of your choice, and thank you for spoiling me for choice and giving me three. We've either got the pub, we've got the bowling green, or we've got, what was the third one you said?
Study.
The study. So where would you like me to arrive with a metaphorical tree?
Better be on the bowling green.
Let's do that. My dad will enjoy that too. So this is a bit Waiting for Godot-esque, if I may, because of my sort of acting and theatre background. I'm going to arrive with a metaphorical tree, and I'm going to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. And this is where you've been kind enough, Roger McGough, wonderful Merseybeat poet, to have thought about 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you. I will recap on this. 2 things that never fail to grab your attention, and borrow from the film Up. That's a bit, squirrels, what never fails to grab your attention, whatever else is going on in your life. And then a quirky or unusual fact about you. So where would you like to shake your canopy? Which apples do you want to crunch on?
The first one, what shaped me, I suppose. I suppose inevitably what shaped me was the city which I grew up in, which is Liverpool. So that very shaped the sort of, to some extent, the person I became, I think. And my parents. And my parents, my dad worked on the docks in Liverpool all his life. My mum had to work most of her life. And my mum was one of 13 in the family. Dad was one of 7. And so he worked on the docks. There was never any money around at all. We never had holidays, never went abroad at all, never went out to eat, all those things. This is going back a long time. No money around. But my dad, my mum, always brought me up to think how lucky I was. I was never you know, if you weren't deprived, you were a working class family, working as hard on the docks and made little money. We never owned a house. We always rented a house right to that. I left also renting a house. And so you were, by a lot of standards, poor. But we were told how lucky we were. You know, Roger, you're lucky, you know, to be born in Liverpool. You know, you could be born in Bristol or Manchester. You know. You're lucky you were born in Liverpool. And you're lucky to be Catholic. We're all Catholics, you know, some bad people out there. And you're lucky to have a mum and dad who love you, you know, and have a mum and dad, you know, and it's true. So in a way, that's all you need. So just give you a sort of acceptance of things in a way.
And I'm hearing they imbued you with a sense of identity and pride in being Scouse.
Yes,
being
that's right. Yeah, that's
yes.
right. You don't. Yes, exactly that. You know, you know, you pride in little things. The little things are the big things. That's certainly the thing. Yeah.
That's a lovely starter shapeage. Thank you. The second thing.
What was the second? What was that? What was the second?
That'll be the next thing to have shaped you. So first of all, it's your parents and your sense
of
of identity.
Language, I suppose. Language shaped me inevitably. Yes, language. Going to school and learning to read. I remember there were no books around when I was a kid. There were no bookshops, as I say. Libraries were closed. But Mum was very good. My mum taught me to read. She's got out HP bottles, sauce bottles. She used to read sauce bottles and sardine tins and tins of Ovaltine, and tucked up in bed, and she'd read the sides of her, you know, fall asleep.
So you would read, literally, your early reading experience was reading the back of an HP sauce bottle and an Ovaltine?
My mum reading the back of the HP sauce bottle thing.
Oh,
the back of
amazing.
I could be kidding here, I don't know. But I've written a poem, that's the poem. That's how I learned to read. And then going to school and learning language off a board. Remember, they used to learn the language in those days, alphabet. Ronnie's red rattle says R, and tired mother says, and the big drawing chair, and Ronnie's red rattle with a R. And the letters were very visual to me, I remember.
Yes.
The sound, that language was a visual thing, and it moved around all the time. And yeah, it's weird, really.
So you were talking about big alphabets on your school walls there?
Yes, I was. Yeah. These are big walls, big pictures.
Yes.
That's how we learned it. Yeah, and I just like that. And I was always good at language. It's very different to literature, Chris. It's silly, but if I can jump on from primary school up to taking your GCSEs and all those things.
Yes.
I failed English literature, which a lot of surprises many people, but shouldn't really. I did well in English language. The reason was I failed literature because I didn't read the books. I didn't read the set books. You know, it's as simple as that. You don't read the Merv Castenbridge or whatever it is. You know, pass your exams, but I was sort of busy doing other things. So language was always so important to me, and I was remained ever since.
So you were, if I may, you were sort of metaphorically doodling in your own scape of linguistic.
Good way of putting it. Yeah, doodling in there.
I relate to that rather than reading the set text, which you have to read, and if they're prescribed, we never like doing anything we're told to do.
That's right, yeah. And I was sort of looking out the window when should have been paying attention, that sort of thing. In fact, one of my new books coming out, he said modestly, is a children's book called My First Poem, and that's very much going back to what we're talking about. It's a child, very part, beginning of the book, about 12 poems, called Today I Am Writing My First Poem. I was about a child trying to recapture that in the middle of a classroom and trying to write a poem because you had to, be told. And at first resisting, what's the point? What's this for? What's the point? And then eventually being drawn into it by staring out the window, you know, and seeing what happens and looking at the words and let them take over sometimes, and then stepping in gently and order them, and you know, they become your friends. So come back to that sort of language thing, because it's been
and I love the idea that you're staring out the window and your imagination is beginning to run wild in the outer reaches of outside the window.
Rather than in a way, yes. And they're always influenced by the language that people use. And children usually they come to it. and my own kids saying things like, oh, Dad, look, Dad, a bit's dropped off the moon. And you look up, and of course, it's a half moon and that sort of thing. It's dropped off the moon. And, if you're not careful, you say, don't be silly, it's dropped off the moon. Don't Google it. But what you've got to do is encourage that sort of seeing. There's a nice story about it didn't happen to me, but a friend of mine, as a child, going past Didcot power station, there's a power station, big power station, and the kids said, oh, look, a cloud factory.
Oh,
That's
lovely.
isn't it? That's lovely.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a clear thing, you see. And I was saying good teachers and good parents encourage that in the child, not correct them, not say, oh no.
I think that's the most delicious rebranding for the Didcot power station. I think it's been felled now, but to call it a cloud machine, the old cooling
yes,
towers.
isn't it? Yeah, I know. So I love the way children talk in that way and see the world. And I just think every child is a poet naturally, and that is a natural poet, often until they go to school. That's not knocking teaching at all or schools. It's just that even the best parents themselves and teachers will sort of set the child on a route towards knowledge and education and correct them. So you must find out the facts. That's how things work, and how much education is geared towards knowledge, getting right answers, and factual, and at the cost of the creative side of things.
So I'm hearing that we have a shared love of improvisation and the nature of just getting your imagination run a bit wild there.
Yes, and doing that, and not knowing where it's going to go, and that sort of thing. And it is difficult to explain, isn't it? You probably find and to rationalize, and to, when you're talking about other people saying the importance,
Yes.
Get a job. You must get a job and get a good job. That's important. And what's the point of doing art? What's the point of painting? It's very nice, but
Yes.
Roger was writing, very good, but let's do something. Get on your maths. Get on your do medicine. Do whatever, something that's going to be good for everybody. Where's that going to get you?
You're also describing beautifully the journey and story of a sort of non-conformist and more of a sort of societal maverick. You go in the different direction to be inventive in your own
and I see, because I don't think it is, you see, I don't think it should be seen as, we see it as maverick, but you're saying what people see it as. It isn't. It's just a basic thing, but the basic child is creative, and that creativity should be just encouraged. And so there's nothing maverick about it. It's nothing rebellious about it. It's rebellious because we built a society in which it is. If we build a society with that is the core.
Yes.
This is hard to do, but there have been educationalists out there who go for this, and let's rethink how we can inspire our children and make a society work, and there will be good jobs that come out of it. They'll all be poets or painters. God wouldn't want that. There will be the mathematicians and scientists and the physicists, but there's a part of them that is also open to imagination.
I love that. Open to imagination. Lovely. And if you've got a copy of your new book to hand, by all means, at the very end, show it up to the screen, please.
All right. I haven't, but I've got a photograph of it.
And we're still in the canopy of your trees, if I'm right, and we could be about to either do a fourth thing that shaped you, or we could be on to three things that inspire you now, whatever you'd like to do.
All right. You got me, put me on a separate minute. I'm just going to show you this now before I've got it, then it'll disappear. Can you see that?
Holding it up. Safety in Numbers, Roger McGough is the new book.
That's to look at, yeah. So the books aren't out yet. They're still on the back of an HGV lorry without a driver, somewhere between China and here, unfortunately. But anyway, they'll arrive one day. Yes, Chris, what we're doing now? I'm thinking of other things.
Yes, and by the way, that's really lovely that your books are actually caught in transit somewhere in China in a lorry. But thank you for wonderfully showing us the icon there. Okay. Safety in Numbers, lovely. Just replanting that seed for you. Yeah, so three things that inspire you now.
Well, it's been almost the same things, really. It's language, people, and what I look out the window. It's all those things. There's no particular thing that inspires me.
By the way, that is a lovely answer, because I'm loving the reincorporation of just you always default to the wonderful world of the imagination outside of the window, which is a lovely reincorporation.
Yeah, in the sense that, you know, when I and as you do, I know you run workshops for speakers and imagination, as I do with poetry. And part of it is not just giving them my students come along. They will bring poems they like, and that's good, and they will write poems, and they often want something to write about. You're going to give them a theme, a narrative, and I'm sort of, a narrative will occur and will come in inevitably, but you don't. That's not always necessarily a good starting point. It could be just the words themselves. See where the poem takes you. Let the poem give the poem a free rein. So when I come back to this imagination things I need, it is that. Anyway, yeah. Do you want quirky facts? Which one?
Lovely, and that makes me think of an artist flinging paint at the canvas and then seeing what they create.
Yeah.
With the anarchy of words. I love that, and imagination. Okay, so 2 things that never fail to grab your attention. Whatever else is going on in your life, what never fails to, squirrels, grab your attention, Roger McGough.
I don't get the hoop squirrels bit. I never understand when you've been saying that famous film about squirrels, hoop squirrels.
Well, forgive the reference. There is a film called Up where a dog is always distracted by shiny things, and in his case, the shiny things always like, oh, squirrel. You know, whatever you're doing, you get distracted and run after the squirrels. So in my life, it might be something like a ping pong table, because I love table tennis.
Well, there you go. I'll give me. Yes, I have downstairs a table tennis table. So after this is finished, maybe we could. I used to love table tennis. I used to play when I was at school. Yeah, I used to play in the local youth club. That's quite handy. And had a Barna bat, Victor Barna. Remember Victor Barna? Before
yes.
Time, the famous Hungarian ping pong table tennis player. Used to play that.
And I remember Desmond Douglas, by the way. Just remember a random name of a brilliant black table tennis player. Yes, Desmond Douglas.
And then I played at university, and then, but never much since. But I like table tennis. I used to play cricket. I have a cricket ball somewhere around here. I used to play cricket. So things like that. I was, when I'm walking down the road around, and there's a park nearby, and I play cricket teams playing there. And I can't always put on for cricket generally. I never stop. I've got to stop and watch.
And as you remember, by the way, where we go in France to the English Sisters and Les Sœurs Anglais near Vertiac, Katie Elliott Armitage has a whole annex with a ping pong table in it, which I'm sure you've seen.
That's right, yes. Oh, yes.
And listen, Roger, it'd be an absolute joy to attempt to paddle you into defeat, if you don't mind me saying. It's not about the winning, it's the taking part. It's not really, but it'd be lovely to try and play you at table tennis someday.
Okay, get out of that.
Wonderful. So now, a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know until you tell us.
Have you heard about my winning a baby competition, Bonny Baby competition when I was 18 months old?
No, you won. So just a Bonny Baby competition at the age of 18 months old.
Yes. Don't people know that? I thought everybody knew that. Yes, 18 months. I remember it.
As a first memory, you remember that?
No. I've seen the photographs. My mum holding me. I was a baby of the competition. There's different babies, different categories, different ages, and I was the overall winner. I won an overall. I was great. I don't remember much of that, but I remember just life's been downhill since then.
I could tell you must have been a beautiful baby, as the expression has it. So yes, that's lovely that you went back.
I was beautiful.
And by the way, that's a nice segue as we come up to the 7 Ages of Man. I know your poem is about getting to 104, and please get beyond that. But we'll talk about legacy and how you'd most like to be remembered. And of course, the 7 Ages of Man ends up going back into infancy, so there'll be a lovely full circle, maybe, as you know. Yes. So, any other quirky facts while we've got you doing quirky facts?
Is it quirky the fact that I won a ballroom dancing competition when I was a student? And I remember with my then girlfriend, Josephine, we won it in Hull. I was at Hull University, we won a competition, ballroom dancing, and then we went to the semi-final in Hull, at the City Hall, and then we wanted to go into the final. We were then invited to the final down in London, but we didn't go because it was too far and we couldn't afford it.
So this could be your hat in the ring, Roger McGough, for going on to
Strictly.
Strictly. Let's. Yeah,
No, I
the
think,
next series, Roger McGough, world official. He wants to be in the next
no,
series.
no. So that's the odd thing, yeah. Quick. I think it's quick, isn't it? Probably.
And again, I'm very admiring of your dancing acumen as well. At drama school, if we did dancing, I would be famous for sort of taking out the back row. I'm not naturally gifted. I like physical comedy, but I'm not very, very good at dancing, I have to say.
Okay.
Okay, so listen, we've shaken your tree and you're still very happily here in the clearing. In the structure of it now, what we're going to talk about next is about alchemy and gold in the metaphor of what I'm talking about. So when you're at purpose and in flow, Roger McGough, and this may not be too surprising an answer, but what are you happiest doing when you're at purpose and in flow?
There are different things, aren't there? I mean, the completion, starting a poem, obviously, at beginning something, an idea or something, is great. And finishing it is even. It's better. I don't know whether it is. It's funny enough, when I finished the last poem for the new book, there's a bit feeling of loss, actually. God, what we're going to do now?
Yes. Oh gosh, do you always have that? Whenever you finish a poem, you leave the end of the paper. You fall off the end of the world of that paper and that poem.
I know, that's right. And so that's sort of good. But so it's a great thing to start a book, and to be on the side of the stage, as I have been the last few days, again, literally doing shows around the country in Worcester and Birmingham, and off to Liverpool next week and Halifax. And that thing picking up after a year, you imagine. I mean,
yes, the lockdown.
It was March, it was actually March the 11th, 2020 was the last gig I did before the lockdown, and that was in Liverpool. It wasn't a public gig. It was for head teachers and English teachers, and talking about poetry at school. And it was great. But that was the Saturday of the Liverpool versus Atletico Madrid game, and Liverpool was full of Spaniards, and it was great atmosphere. But there was a feeling that they were introducing COVID into England, if you may remember.
Yes.
And there was a feeling very quickly that that was a mistake. I remember on the train going back, and people were a bit shifty. And someone was coughing, and someone was looking.
Yes.
And after that, I was at the end of, I was just like everybody else in lockdown, and which is just opened again. And so there's something just nice about being in a dressing room.
So getting back on the open road and the joy of performing and the buzz of performing.
Yeah, and that'll last until I get a bit tired of reading the poems. I mean, they're all new poems to me, and I'm discovering new things in them and changing them as I go along. In fact, I'm saying different things as I read them to what's actually written in the book.
Yes.
Because you keep developing things and changing things. So that's all good.
And I'm assuming that when the poem obviously is published, that's the point, it's locked off as a poem, even though you may evolve it in your own head.
And I will continue changing that. In fact, some of the poems in the book are poems of old poems of mine that I've revisited, rewritten, and come out again. And some will know, some won't know. That's what artists still sound, don't they? Painters will revisit old things. David Hockney go back to this and do about that.
And when was the last time you wrote a poem? Obviously, we're here on the 12th of October. So when did you last write a poem, Roger McGough?
Last week, I suppose. Last week, about 10 days ago.
And by the way, just what I'm just discussing, I dug this out of my cupboard. It's your book, Lucky. Poems by Roger McGough that I got given. It says at the front, I was called by my wife, Happy Birthday, Mr. Lucky. And I got this in 1994. And as I mentioned, we do have Poetry Please in common and Viv Beebe. I mentioned that just before we started recording.
Viv Beebe, yes, wonderful producer, yes. Viv.
And there was a production of Hiawatha, and I was doing that, but then I think you came up on stage and were doing poems in the interval bits. Okay. So it was this is not the first time I've met you. I resisted saying this is not the first time you've met me, because this is about you, not about me.
You had a headdress on, if I remember then, didn't you? A big headdress.
Thank you. I make a beautiful Hiawatha.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you for remembering that. Wonderful. And so we've talked about alchemy and gold, and I love the idea of the sort of still the joy of performing and being in the wings, ready to come on. When we were corresponding about, finalising the date today, you were about to be in Brummie. You said Brummie tomorrow in one of the last texts I got from you. Okay, so now I'm going to award you with a cake. Now we've talked about alchemy and gold and when you're at your happiest. So the cake is my final storytelling metaphor, where this is a multi-layered cake, and you'll see where I'm going with this, Roger McGough. But first question to you is, do you like cake, Roger?
I like cake, yes. I like cake, very much so. I like cake.
And I hope you get lots of cake at the bowling green, as my dad does. But what type of cake?
Yesterday, Lem Sissay called around yesterday.
Who did?
Lem Sissay, the poet.
Oh,
and writer, wonderful, great guy, doing a show. And the engineer brought a piece of cake his wife made for me because she likes my poem, and that's great. And the cake's great. So when we finish this chat, I'm going downstairs and going to finish up the cake.
And what type of cake are we talking, Roger?
It's it's nice. I don't know. It's like a lemony, cheesy, chocolatey, strawberry, custardy type of thing.
That sounds like my kind of cake. Yes, so let's nom nom nom. Let's go for all of that. And so now the invitation is for you in that delicious cake that I know you're looking forward to finishing off. This is the cherry on the cake of the conversation, the legacy of our conversation. So the cherry's metaphor is: could I find out for you what is your favourite inspirational quote? That's always. Or your favourite line of poetry. You can interpret this as you wish. So a favourite inspirational quote. It could be the best piece of advice you've ever been given, or it could be, as we've talked about your wonderful poem, Let Me Die a Young Man's Death. What advice might you offer to a younger version of yourself? And then finally, inspired by Shakespeare and All the World's a Stage, when all is said and done, Roger McGough, and may you go well beyond 104, what would you like your legacy to be? How would you most like to be remembered?
Well, I think best advice I had. It's funny when in the newspaper article, when people say the best advice they ever have, and I was reading them. I don't know, it's all good, it's all well meaning, but I don't know, best advice. Charles Causley was one of my favorite poets. Years and years ago, almost I had one book published, wasn't really well known, and I was with him, met him, and he liked my work, obviously, and we were traveling back from somewhere, and he said, Roger, critics will often not like your poetry. I said, well, why are you saying that? Critics? Yes, he said, you like poetry, you have books published, and critics will often not like it. Take no notice. You're a poet, just carry on. You're the one. I thought, and I didn't quite know what he's on, because I didn't really have any bad reviews at that time. They had come in later, and there was a sort of reaction against, particularly the Liverpool Poets and the Mersey Sound, and there was a sort of rather sniffy critics regarded it as unspoken word poetry and like that, as being not poetry, and if it's funny, it's not poetry, and it's like for children, it's not really poetry. And if you come from Liverpool, it can't really be poetry, can it? So you have this like snobbish sort of aggression here and there. So in a way, I was borne in mind what Charles said, that just go on doing it. You were going to do it anyway. Just go and ignore them. Just go on with it. So that's it. Ignore bad criticism generally. Think about it, but then.
And so wonderful you are keeping going with your last poem just being just this last week. And I don't doubt you've got a bit of paper at the ready for your next one. So yes, keep going. Please keep going.
Thank you. Thank you.
And what advice might you proffer to a younger version of yourself?
That really, I mean, that's all. I mean, I go back to being a Catholic, those sort of church and all those things have kept on some things. Most people don't. Yeah, and see why. I have to question myself, saying, well, church on Sunday, why do you say your prayer? But I do. And so it's like, help me along. You don't think you need help along, but it's just something you do become part of your life, part of the structure of your life.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of admitting to it.
Well, Wonderful. And then, if I may, then, even if this is similar but inspired by Shakespeare and All the World's a Stage, when all is said and done, when you make it well beyond 104, and again, I keep referencing Let Me Die, a Young Man's Death, because it is an absolute favourite, iconic poem of mine, a favourite of yours. But how would you most like to be remembered, Roger McGough?
Well, that's the title of my autobiography.
Roger McGough, Said and Done, I'm reading in the screen.
Said and done, you saying the said and done. So I said it and did it, in a way. So Roger McGough, Said and Done.
Letting that hang there beautifully. Roger McGough, Said and Done. So, Roger McGough, this has been your moment in the sunshine in your Life and Times with me, Chris Grimes, where I've been giving you a good listening to. Is there anything else you'd like to say here in the clearing?
Let me out of here!
Because there is cake that awaits you downstairs. I'll just ask you one other question, if I may. Is there any way that you might consider reading a poem of choice to our listeners?
I'd rather not, because it's been going so well, Chris. I think leave it like that.
We will leave it like that. So,
okay.
Roger McGough, Said and Done, thank you so much for gracing us here with your presence here in the Good Listening To show. I've been Chris Grimes. This has been the wonderful Mersey Beat poet and icon and legend, Roger McGough. Thank you so much, and good night.
Good night.